Catching serial killers has proven to be one of the most difficult tasks facing law enforcement. Serial killers are the best at what they do and can go on killing for years without capture. H. Holmes, the Doctor of Death, killed hundreds in Chicago at the end of the 19th century. At the same time, Jane Toppan silently murdered 31 people in New England. After World War II, the Boston Strangler raped hundreds and killed 13 before capture. Ted Bundy killed as many as 45 women in 4 states spanning 2 years. John Wayne Gacy snatched 33 young men and boys from Chicago's streets before the stench of dead bodies in his basement unveiled his murderous lifestyle. California's freeway killers produced a roadside killing field from 1971 to 1983. And Henry Lee Lucas may have killed as many as 300 before his capture. Many murder cold cases are now believed to be the work of serial killers.
Well, certainly a lot of cold case murders could be the product of serial killers. I have one right now from 1954 that I believe is one of the first victims of a serial killer. So before this phenomenon was identified, certainly there could be cases that were missed and thought to be just a single event, or maybe 2 events put together in the same town, where actually it's a series of events that have taken place over some distance and some time.
A combination with DNA, plus the fact that more and more agencies are developing cold case squads. They are, to some extent, ironically, mimicking television, which I find interesting. But also there seems to be more pressure on the police department from survivors to, solve these cases, particularly if they see it solved on TV. So there's pressure from the public who watch these TV programs on television, and there's also some ideas that come across for the agencies themselves, which is a good thing. I guess that's something good the media has done.
Indeed, almost every night, some serial killer is caught on TV. The media has made it look easy to catch a serial killer. But 2 of the most infamous serial killers of all time were never caught nor identified. Jack the Ripper mutilated and killed 5 women in 19th century London over a 4-month time span. His killings terrorized a city. He even wrote notorious letters to the police, taunting them.
The next job I do, I shall clip the ladies' ears off and send to the police officers. Just for jolly, wouldn't you? Keep this letter back till I do a bit more work, then give it out straight. My knife's so nice and sharp, I want to get to work right away if I get a chance. Good luck.
Jack played with them.
You'll hear about Saucy Jack's work tomorrow. Double event this time. Number 1 squealed a bit. Couldn't finish straight off. Not the time for ears for police.
In spite of a huge public outcry to nab this murderous fiend, in the end, he vanished into the night and was never caught nor identified. Similarly, the serial killer known as the Zodiac, who terrorized California's Bay Area in the 1960s, was never caught nor identified. He killed 6 people and wounded 2 others. His MO was daring daylight murders in public places. And, like the Ripper, he wrote letters and taunted the police. You will find the kids in a brown car. I shot them with a 9mm Luger. I also killed those kids last year. Goodbye. But in the end, after intense efforts by police and the press to bring him to justice, the Zodiac eluded capture and may still be alive today. Another serial murderer that many thought would forever elude capture was the killer known as BTK. BTK stood for Bind, Torture, and Kill. It was the AKA for a serial killer who murdered 10 victims between 1974 and 1991 in Wichita, Kansas, and then suddenly stopped. This case raised the question why it's been so hard for law enforcement to catch actual serial killers when it seems so easy on TV shows. The reasons will surprise and startle you. The 1991 movie, The Silence of the Lambs, made a star out of a sadistic but brilliant serial killer named Hannibal Lecter, the much-admired anti-hero of crime. But in reality, serial killers are anything but anti-heroes.
At the bottom level, serial killing comes down to a really ugly, horrible, violent act about which nothing is funny, nothing is entertaining, nothing is charming, right? And it is a testament to the writers who created him and the actor who portrayed him that Hannibal Lecter pulls it off so incredibly successfully. But I think that, you know, I'm sanguine about Hannibal Lecter. I think he's a great character. I don't feel a sense of anger that a serial killer is portrayed in some sort of way, because I think really we all understand, you know, when you watch when you watch Wile E. Coyote getting blown up, you know, an actual coyote isn't being injured, right? Okay, we understand that Hannibal Lecter is a character who has been created to play with our emotions and our intellect and our sense of humor, and he does it in an incredibly great way. But I think we all understand that the reality that underlies that is that serial murder isn't any of those things that he represents.
In fact, serial killers not only cause incomparable suffering and terror for their victims, torturing them and cutting their lives short, but they also produce long-term pain and grief for the friends and relatives of the victims.
I think it's unfortunate that the sensationalistic nature of murder sometimes shifts our attention to the perpetrator. We become preoccupied with the heinous details of the crime and sometimes forget that there are lots of ripples in that pond. Perhaps some of it is the victim is dead. But I know from years of experience that there are many victims beyond the deceased. I meet with the surviving spouse, the surviving children, the surviving parents. Those are anguished discussions.
This anguish is not felt by the serial killer for his victims. As everyone learned, the Wichita serial killer Dennis Rader, BTK, talked about his victims as if they were objects.
And I don't think it was actually the person that I was after, I think it was the dream. I know that's not really nice to say about a person, but they were basically an object. They were just an object, that's how it worked.
Dennis Rader was not a brilliant serial killer. He was just good at killing. One of the reasons serial killers are hard to catch is that they are good at what they do. Just as a taxicab driver is good at driving, serial killers are good at killing.
People sometimes wonder, well, why aren't they caught? Well, some people are very skilled at flying below radar. They're very furtive in their strategies. They're very calculating.
Most homicides are solved within 48 hours. But these guys can get away with murder and stay on the loose over long periods of time. It's a self-selection process. The ones who are not excellent killers are caught almost immediately. The ones who get away with murder and are able to amass the body count that deserves to be labeled serial murder are the ones who have the street smarts to stay on the loose.
And of course, another way to think about this in terms of prison versus outside